The sky above Earth was calm, painted with streaks of silver clouds drifting lazily under the sun. For centuries, nothing unusual had disturbed this peace. Humanity had grown used to the rhythm of life war's peace, technology, exploration. Nothing in their imagination could prepare them for what was about to happen. It began with a sound, a low hum, so faint at first that people thought it was their imagination. Farmers in fields paused, tilting their heads. Pilots in the air reported strange interference. In cities, windows shook as if touched by invisible waves. The sound grew, louder, deeper, until it felt as though the earth itself was vibrating. Then the clouds began to move. At first it looked like a storm. Thick clouds swirled unnaturally, spiraling into patterns no weather system could create. Airplanes diverted. People pulled out phones and pointed cameras at the sky. But this was no storm. The clouds opened, torn apart by something massive pushing through from above. Gasps filled the streets as the first glimpse appeared. Edges of metal, vast and sharp, glowing faintly with lines of light. The object was colossal, so large that its shadow stretched for miles. Slowly it rose out of the clouds, a shape unlike anything humans had ever seen. It was a ship, not a human ship, not anything Earth had ever built. Its hull was black and gold, scarred with age yet shining with strange energy that pulsed like veins. Symbols ran across its surface, glowing faintly, like a language alive with power. The ship was ancient, yet it looked alive. The world froze. News broadcasts cut into every screen. Social media exploded with shaky videos. Entire cities emptied as people ran to rooftops and fields, staring upward at the impossible sight. Governments scrambled jets, but none dared to fire. Weapons seemed useless against something this size. The ship drifted silently, majestic and terrifying, as if it had been waiting beneath the sky all along. Its engines hummed with a deep vibration that echoed across continents. Birds scattered, oceans rippled. The atmosphere itself bent under its presence. Then came the voices, not human voices, across radio channels, television screens, even civilian devices. A signal pulsed. A language not spoken on Earth filled the air, sharp and commanding. It translated itself across devices, and soon every human heard the same chilling message. We have returned. After 30,000 years, we come to reclaim what is ours. The world erupted in panic. People screamed in the streets. Soldiers raised their weapons. Leaders shouted intercoms for answers. Who had returned? What were they reclaiming? Above Earth, more ships emerged. Sleek alien vessels descended from orbit, surrounding the massive warship like guardians. Their hulls gleamed with advanced technology, weapons glowing with power beyond human comprehension. They moved with arrogance, with certainty, as if they had come home to claim their inheritance. In a council chamber orbiting a distant star, alien voices echoed in triumph. These were the descendants of an ancient empire, long forgotten, who had once ruled the galaxy. They had left their warship hidden on Earth, a treasure buried in silence. And now, after 30,000 years, they had come back to retrieve it. On the ground, humanity stood in shock. Soldiers whispered to one another, "It isn't ours. It never was." Scientists stared at screens, trying to measure the energy flowing from the ship, their devices overwhelmed. Civilians clung to each other, fear spreading like fire. Aliens believed the warship would answer them instantly. They believed humanity was nothing more than trespassers, weak creatures living on a planet never meant to be theirs. To the returning empire, Earth was just a caretaker, guarding their relic by accident. But as the massive warship pulsed with light, something strange happened. It did not respond. The aliens sent commands in their ancient tongue. The warship remained still. They demanded access. The ship ignored them. Runes glowed faintly, flickering, but no hatch opened, no weapon armed, no engine roared. Confusion spread among the alien fleets. "Why is it silent?" one asked. "It should know us. It should obey us." Their voices grew louder, angrier, but the ship remained unmoved, as if listening for something else. On Earth, humanity watched in silence. They had no answers, yet deep in their hearts, some felt something different. The ship was not ignoring everything. It was waiting. That the forgotten sky had opened, the aliens had returned, and the warship, buried for 30,000 years, had awakened. But it was not theirs to claim, not anymore. The great warship hovered above the clouds like a second moon, its golden runes pulsing faintly as if the ship itself was breathing. Humanity stared in fear, but it was the aliens who acted first. Their fleets descended from orbit in perfect formation, hundreds of sleek warships surrounding the colossal vessel. Their engines burned bright blue, their weapons glowed with power. and their presence darkened the skies of Earth. The lead alien ship broke away from the formation and descended lower. It was a massive command cruiser, black and silver, bristling with cannons. A voice boomed across every human channel, translated perfectly into every language on Earth. Humans, this ship is not yours. It never was. We are the rightful heirs of this vessel. It obeyed us once, and it will obey us again. The words hit like thunder. Entire cities froze. World leaders called emergency meetings. Military commanders argued over whether to raise defenses or stand down. No one dared to fire first. The aliens continued, their voices filled with arrogance. For 30,000 years, you sheltered beneath its shadow, unknowing. But we have returned. Stand aside, or be swept aside. Human soldiers gritted their teeth, staring up at the sky. To them, this was an invasion. To the aliens, it was nothing more than retrieval, like claiming a lost artifact. In orbit, the alien fleets moved closer to the massive ship. They approached with confidence, their scanners flooding the relic with signals. They expected doors to open, systems to activate, power to surge at their command. But nothing happened. The great warship remained silent. Its runes flickered faintly, but it did not bow. The alien commanders grew impatient. They sent coded signals, commands, in their ancient tongue. Still nothing. They broadcast powerful energy waves to force a response. The ship ignored them. Inside the lead cruiser, an alien general slammed his fist against the console. Why does it not answer? It was forged by our ancestors. This vessel is our birthright. His second in command, nervous, replied, perhaps the systems are dormant after so long, perhaps it requires time. The general snarled, then we will wake it, by force, if we must. On Earth, humanity watched the spectacle unfold. Scientists monitored the readings in awe. The ship's energy signature is growing stronger. One whispered, it's alive. It's resisting them. Soldiers gripped their rifles tighter. Civilians stared upward, half in terror, half in wonder. The world realized that this was no ordinary relic. It had a will of its own. The aliens tried everything. They activated their weapons, firing controlled energy blasts at the hull. The desert shook as explosions lit the sky, but when the fire faded, the warship stood untouched. Its surface absorbed the blows like drops of rain on stone. The runes glowed brighter for a moment, then dimmed again, as if mocking the effort. Next came the rituals. Alien priests, cloaked in shimmering robes, descended from orbit. They walked across the sands toward the colossal vessel, chanting prayers from texts older than human civilization. They raised their hands, touching the hull with reverence. For a moment, the runes flickered faintly under their touch. The priests gasped in triumph, but then, just as suddenly, the light faded. The warship ignored them too. The alien soldiers grew restless. Their commanders barked orders. Teams marched forward, carrying heavy machinery, scanners, and cutting tools. They set up massive drills, attempting to pierce the golden plating. Sparks flew, metal shrieked, the machines roared, but the ship remained whole, unbroken, impenetrable. The drills shattered, the tools melted. The soldiers cursed in frustration. 30,000 years, one alien growled, and now it rejects us. This cannot be. But it was happening. The warship was alive, but it refused to obey. Meanwhile, whispers spread among humanity. Some scientists began to suspect the truth. The ship was not responding because it was waiting for something else. Soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Civilians clung to hope, thinking, maybe it's not theirs anymore. The aliens, however, refused to believe it. Their voices thundered again across human channels. This delay is temporary. This vessel belongs to us. Do not interfere. Humans, you are nothing more than witnesses to history. But the arrogance in their tone only deepened humanity's unease. People asked the same question again and again. If the ship didn't answer to them, then who would it answer to? The alien general stood before the great vessel, his voice raised in fury. You are ours. Awaken. Obey your masters. His words echoed across the desert, but the warship remained silent. Golden runes pulsing slowly like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. The silence was louder than thunder. For the first time, cracks appeared in the aliens' certainty. Their soldiers shifted. Nervously, their priests doubted their chants. Their scientists muttered that something was wrong. But perhaps the ship's command protocols had shifted over the millennia, and in that silence, humanity felt a spark of something unexpected. Not just fear, not just awe, but a strange, rising sense of possibility, because if the ship did not belong to the aliens anymore, then maybe, just maybe, it belonged to them. The forgotten sky had revealed the relic. The aliens had returned to claim it, but the warship had refused their call, and, in that refusal, the fate of the galaxy began to change. The desert stretched wide beneath the shadow of the warship. Its golden hull gleamed under the sun, a relic of impossible size and age. For hours the alien fleets surrounded it, their commanders barking orders, their soldiers rushing across the sands with machines and weapons. The air was thick with tension, filled with the roar of engines, the hiss of drills, and the hum of scanners. But the ship remained silent. The aliens grew more desperate with each failure. First came the engineers, dragging colossal devices that crackled with energy. They set their machines against the hull, flooding the ancient metal with radiation, power surges, and coded pulses meant to trigger dormant systems. Sparks flew, machines overheated, and readings went wild. Yet the ship ignored them. Its golden runes glowed faintly, pulsing slow and steady, as if laughing at their efforts. Next came the soldiers. Dozens of them marched forward in formation, weapons raised. At a signal, they unleashed volley after volley of plasma fire, explosions lighting up the desert. Smoke billowed, sand turned to glass, the air trembled with the force of the barrage. When the fire cleared, the ship's hull remained untouched. The runes burned brighter, reflecting the soldiers' fear back at them. One soldier muttered, "It's mocking us." His commander snapped for silence, but the words lingered in the air. The priests tried again. Cloaked in silver robes, they sang ancient hymns, their voices rising in strange harmonies. They sprinkled sacred dust upon the hull, etched forgotten symbols into the sand, and chanted words their ancestors had spoken millennia ago. For a moment, the runes flickered, brighter than before. A cheer rose from the priests, their voices trembling with hope. But just as quickly, the glow faded. The warship returned to silence, as if the rituals meant nothing. The generals grew furious. "Increase power. Bring more equipment," one shouted. Caravans of machines rolled across the dunes, drills, cannons, fusion cutters. They clamped themselves against the hull, digging, burning, cutting with weapons powerful enough to pierce planets. But nothing worked. Blades shattered, drills bent, cannons overheated, and exploded. The ship's surface remained flawless, eternal. Panic began to creep into the aliens' ranks. Soldiers exchanged nervous looks. Engineers whispered that the ship was resisting them. Priests argued over whether their gods had abandoned them. And all the while, the warship pulsed quietly, its runes glowing with the rhythm of a heartbeat, slow and steady, alive but unwilling. From the ground, humanity watched. Soldiers stood guard in the dunes, fingers twitching on their rifles, though they knew they were powerless against either side. Scientists studied the energy readings, their eyes wide with awe. "It's responding to something," one whispered, but not to them. The civilians huddled together, watching the skies with fear and wonder. For the first time, humanity realized the aliens were not in control. Their voices were filled with arrogance, their weapons were advanced, but the ship refused them. It would not open, it would not obey, it would not acknowledge its so-called masters. The alien commanders tried to mask their doubt, but their desperation showed. They shouted across open channels, claiming the process would take time. They told their soldiers to be patient, their priests to sing louder, their engineers to dig deeper. But in private, their voices trembled. "This is impossible." One general hissed, "It should answer us." Another whispered back, "What if it won't? What if something has changed?" The words spread like poison. Fear crept through the ranks. The galaxy had waited 30,000 years for this moment, and now the relic they called their birthright had turned its face away from them. The great warship shifted. For the first time, its runes pulsed brighter, sending ripples of golden light across its surface. The ground trembled. The air vibrated with a deep hum, low and resonant, as though the vessel was testing its strength. Alien soldiers stumbled back, their weapons shaking in their hands. Priests fell to their knees, crying out in confusion. The generals shouted for order, but their voices were drowned by the hum. And then, silence returned. The ship had moved. It had acknowledged something, but not them. Whispers spread through the humans on the ground. Some said it was alive. Others claimed it was listening. The bravest among them dared to say aloud what everyone feared. "It's waiting, but not for them, for us." The idea was madness. How could humanity, young and fragile compared to these ancient empires, hold the key to something this powerful? Yet the evidence was in the silence, in the failures of the aliens, in the quiet defiance of the warship itself. The aliens refused to admit defeat. They raised their weapons again, preparing for another attempt, their voices rising in anger and desperation. But beneath their shouts, beneath the roar of their machines, there was something else, a growing unease, a creeping fear they could not shake, because deep down, they knew the truth. The warship was not theirs anymore, and in the stillness of the desert, as golden light rippled faintly across the ancient hull, humanity felt the spark of something new, not just fear, not just awe, but a dangerous, thrilling possibility. Maybe the ship was waiting for them. The desert was silent except for the hum of the great warship. Its golden runes pulsed faintly, like veins glowing under skin, each light steady as a heartbeat. Alien fleets still hovered in the skies, their warships circling like vultures. On the sands below, their soldiers and priests remained at work, but their movements were slower now, weighed down by doubt. Hours had passed since their first attempts. Their strongest weapons had failed, their most sacred rituals had been ignored, their most brilliant scientists had found nothing. The warship had rejected them all. Among humanity, whispers grew louder. Soldiers stood with rifles clutched tight, though they knew firing them would be useless. Scientists crowded around their instruments, muttering readings that made no sense. Civilians huddled together, pointing to the glowing hull and whispering words no one dared say too loudly. "It's waiting for us." The aliens dismissed these whispers. Their commanders mocked humanity's weakness. Their priests declared that the ship was only testing its chosen people. Their generals barked orders, demanding new attempts. But their confidence cracked each time the warship remained silent. And then it happened. From among the humans standing at the edge of the desert, a young woman stepped forward. She was no soldier, no priest, no leader. She was a scientist, one of the many assigned to study the strange signals pouring out of the relic. Her heart pounded as she walked across the sand, past her fellow humans who reached out to stop her. But something in her chest told her she had to try. The alien shouted angrily as she approached, "Stay back, this is not yours." Soldiers raised their weapons, aiming at her tiny figure against the vast hull. But the commanders hesitated. Killing her would not wake the ship, and some part of them, buried deep beneath arrogance, feared what might happen if they did. She reached the base of the colossal vessel. The golden hull towered above her like a mountain. She lifted her hand, trembling, and pressed her palm against the surface. The metal was warm, pulsing with life. She closed her eyes and whispered a single word, "Hello." The desert held its breath. The runes flared. Light burst from the ship, golden beams racing across its surface like fire spreading through veins. The ground trembled, sand leaping into the air. The hum deepened into a roar, powerful enough to shake the bones of every being present. Alien soldiers stumbled back, their weapons falling from their hands. Priests screamed and fell to their knees. Generals shouted in disbelief, their voices drowned by the rising thunder of the warship's awakening. The young woman staggered, nearly collapsing from the force of the light, but the hull beneath her hand steadied her. The warmth grew stronger, wrapping around her like recognition. She opened her eyes, tears blurring her vision, as words echoed from deep within the vessel. Command interface online. Authorized user detected. The voice was not human, yet it spoke in her tongue. The sound was vast, deep, and heavy with age, as if the ship itself carried the weight of centuries. The aliens cried out in outrage. "No, impossible. It cannot answer to her." Their voices cracked with fear, their certainty shattering. Soldiers retreated, priests tore their robes, generals shouted orders that no one obeyed. Humanity stood frozen, their hearts racing. They had expected to be powerless. They had expected to watch history unfold from the sidelines. But now they realized the impossible. The warship had chosen them. The woman pressed her hand firmer against the glowing hull. Her voice shook as she whispered again, "Can you hear me?" The ship answered instantly, "Yes," at last. The words thundered across the desert, shaking the air, rattling the clouds. Every alien, every human, every fleet orbiting above her. The warship had spoken, and it had spoken to humanity. The light spread further, runes blazing brighter, casting golden fire across the skies. Doors along the hull cracked open, revealing glimpses of corridors filled with light. Massive engines rumbled awake, their vibrations rolling through the sand like thunder. The air was thick with power, the scent of ozone and metal filling every breath. The aliens collapsed into chaos. Some fled toward their ships, shouting warnings. Others screamed curses at humanity. Priests wept openly, declaring their gods betrayed them. The generals gave desperate commands, but their soldiers no longer listened. Fear had broken them. The humans stood in awe. Soldiers lowered their rifles, their hands shaking. Scientists wept with joy and terror, unable to comprehend what they were seeing. Civilians clutched one another, whispering prayers of gratitude or fear. The young woman turned back to her people, her face pale but her eyes alight with fire. "It knows us," she said. "It's ours." The desert erupted with noise. Humanity cried out in disbelief, in wonder, in hope. The aliens screamed in denial. And above them all, the great warship continued to awaken, its golden glow filling the sky like a second sun. The voice returned once more, steady and final: "Humanity, you are my command now." And in that moment, the galaxy shifted. The desert glowed with firelight as the ancient warship awakened. Golden runes blazed brighter than the sun, casting long shadows across the dunes and searing the sky with brilliance. The sound was deafening now, a thunderous hum that rattled the bones of every living creature. The great vessel no longer looked like a relic buried in silence. It looked alive, as if it had been sleeping for 30,000 years and was only now drawing its first true breath. The young woman stood at the base of the massive hull, her palm still pressed against the surface. She felt the vibration traveling through her hand, through her veins, into her heart. It was as though the ship was speaking not only with sound but with feeling, pulsing recognition into her very being. Her team stood behind her, shielding their eyes from the blinding glow, too awed and afraid to move. The voice of the ship rolled out again, powerful and calm. Primary systems online, awaiting orders. Every alien soldier froze. Their generals shouted in disbelief. Their commanders screamed denials. But the truth could not be hidden. The warship was speaking to a human, not to them, not to their priests or their leaders. To her the aliens panicked. Priests tore their robes and wailed that their gods had abandoned them. Soldiers staggered backward, their weapons slipping from their hands. Generals barked desperate commands, ordering their troops to fire upon the hull. But the soldiers hesitated, fear gripping their hearts. What good were weapons against something that ignored the fury of suns? The humans, though shaken, could not look away. They had always thought of themselves as weak compared to the vast empires of the stars. Now, for the first time, they realized the balance had shifted. This vessel, this god of metal and fire, had chosen them. The young woman turned her face upward. The runes responded, glowing brighter in patterns that rippled like rivers of light. She whispered, almost too softly to hear, "Rise." The desert quaked. The warship lifted slowly from the sands, dunes collapsing beneath its massive bulk. The ground split, waves of sand erupting into the air as the engines roared to life. It rose with majesty, climbing higher, golden light spilling across the sky. The clouds above swirled violently, torn apart by the force of its ascent. Humanity fell to its knees, some in terror, others in reverence. Even the aliens could only watch, their fleets trembling in orbit as the relic they had come to claim revealed its true power. Inside the colossal ship, vast chambers stirred. Dust of millennia lifted from golden walls as lights flickered to life. Holographic star maps blossomed in the air, constellations unknown to human eyes shifting and realigning. Passageways unfolded, platforms extended, consoles activated. The warship was not a tomb. It was a living archive, a fortress of knowledge and power waiting for its new masters. The young woman and her team were drawn forward as a great entrance slid open before them. Golden light spilled out, and the ship's voice guided them inward. Command crew detected. "Welcome aboard." They stepped into a chamber vast as a cathedral. The ceiling soared high above, covered in constellations of glowing runes. Panels shifted on the floor, revealing seats and consoles that reshaped themselves to match human form. The ship was adapting as though it had been expecting them all. Along one of her teammates whispered, his voice breaking with awe, "It knows us. It was waiting for us." She nodded, though fear churned in her chest. "But why?" The ship answered without hesitation. "Because humanity endured. You survived where others fell. The mission continues with you." The weight of the words pressed down on her. She realized this was not just a weapon. This was a legacy, a torch passed from one age to another, and now it burned in human hands. Outside, alien fleets scrambled into defensive positions. Their commanders argued furiously. Across comes, some demanded they strike now, before humanity gained full control. Others shouted warnings, insisting that any attack would trigger their own destruction. No one agreed. Fear ruled every voice. The warship's engines thundered louder, vibrating across continents. It rose higher, breaking through the clouds until its golden hull gleamed like a second sun in the sky. Alien ships, once circling with arrogance, now retreated cautiously, afraid to draw its wrath. The sight of them scattering sent a shiver of realization through humanity. The galaxy that had always mocked them now feared them. The young woman stood in the command chamber, staring at the glowing maps stretching across the walls. They showed distant systems, uncharted regions, entire clusters of stars. Some were marked with warnings, others with symbols of battles long past. She reached out to touch one, and the map shifted instantly, zooming into detail. Her hand trembled. This was power beyond anything Earth had ever dreamed. She whispered, "We could change everything." The ship's reply was calm, unshakable. "Humanity commands. The choice is yours." The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. She looked at her team, their faces pale and wide-eyed. They were scientists, soldiers, explorers, but now, they were something more. They were the first humans to stand at the helm of a godlike warship. And outside, the galaxy was watching. The warship's golden glow stretched across the heavens, visible to every eye on Earth and every sensor in orbit. It was not simply a weapon reclaimed. It was a declaration. After 30,000 years, the ship had awakened, and it had not chosen its ancient masters. It had chosen humanity. The galaxy had always believed Earth to be small, fragile, and unimportant. Humans were called reckless, impatient, too young to matter in the grand design of empires that had ruled for millennia. But the moment the golden warship rose above the clouds, that belief shattered. Across alien worlds, news of the awakening spread faster than light. Every channel carried the same message. The relic of the ancients had returned, and it had answered not to its creators but to humans. On the planet C, where markets buzzed with thousands of alien tongues, traders froze mid-bargain as the broadcast played. Holoscreens showed the colossal vessel rising above Earth's skies, golden runes burning like fire. Merchants dropped their wares. Crowds gathered in silence, faces pale. One whispered, "If it is theirs, no empire is safe." In military strongholds orbiting distant suns, admirals leaned over strategy tables, their hands trembling. Fleets that had once prepared to dominate sectors now hesitated. "If humanity commands this ship," one muttered, "our fleets will break like glass against it." Another slammed his fist on the table, growling, "We must strike first." But no one moved. The ship's very presence made them doubt. In holy temples where priests burned incense and sang hymns to the gods of the ancients, the chants faltered. High priests stared at the screens in horror. For thousands of years, they had promised that the lost warship would return to its rightful people. Now it had chosen humans, and their voices cracked as they tried to explain why their prophecies had failed. Some fell to their knees, declaring it divine punishment. Others tore their robes in fury, cursing humanity's name. In political halls, orbiting capital worlds, the leaders of vast empires argued. Some demanded war. "We cannot allow them to keep it. If humans rise, they will destroy us all." Others begged for diplomacy. "If we attack, we invite annihilation. Better to bargain, to ally." Their words clashed, but none had courage to act. And everywhere, ordinary beings whispered the same thought. Humanity had endured, and now the galaxy would pay for underestimating them. Back on Earth, the young woman stood in the glowing command chamber of the ship. The golden map swirled around her, showing constellations far beyond the reach of any known empire. Her hands hovered above the consoles, each one glowing brighter as they responded to her touch. She felt the ship's energy thrumming through her veins, alive and watchful. Her teammate, a soldier, spoke quietly, his voice tight with fear. "Do you understand what this means? Every empire out there is terrified now. They'll come for us. All of them." She nodded, though her throat felt tight. "I know." She looked at the shifting maps again, at the countless stars beyond Earth's skies. "But the ship doesn't belong to them. It belongs to us." The ship's voice filled the chamber. Calm but heavy with authority. "Humanity commands. The galaxy watches. Choose your path." The weight of that choice pressed on her shoulders. For the first time in history, humanity was not weak. They were not prey. They were not forgotten. But power came with danger. Billions of lives across the stars would change depending on what they did next. That alien fleets held their positions above Earth, engines glowing, weapons armed but silent. No one dared to fire. The warship hovered between them, its shields shimmering with golden light, untouchable. The humans on the ground watched with both awe and terror, knowing that even the smallest mistake could ignite a war greater than anything the galaxy had seen before. In the alien council that ruled the stars, chaos reigned. Ambassadors shouted over one another, their voices filled with panic. "It cannot be allowed," one screeched. "They will enslave us all." Another hissed, "No, we must find a way to share it. Offer them peace, before they use it." The council chambers rang with fear, not power. For the first time in millennia, they were no longer in control. Across the galaxy, the story spread. Some beings whispered that humanity was chosen by the ancients. Others called them thieves who had stolen what was never theirs. Some prayed for mercy, others prepared for war. But all agreed on one thing: humanity was no longer to be ignored. On Earth, the young woman stood taller now, her fear shifting into resolve. She looked at her team, at the glowing walls of the chamber, at the map of stars stretching across the galaxy. "We didn't ask for this," she said softly, "but now that it's ours, we can't walk away." The ship's voice rumbled again, as if answering her thought. "Legacy of survival. Legacy of command. Humanity endures." Outside, the warship's engines burned brighter, sending waves of golden light across the skies. Alien fleets flinched, and pulled back farther, unwilling to risk even a stray shot. Humanity stood in silence, their eyes wide, their hearts racing. As they realized the truth, the galaxy feared them now, and that fear was only the beginning. The warship floated above Earth like a second sun, its golden light spilling across oceans and mountains, casting long shadows that stretched for miles. Alien fleets still surrounded the planet, but their formation had broken. Some ships held their ground at a cautious distance, others drifted back in fear, their commanders unsure whether to advance or flee. No one dared to fire. The humans below stood in silence, staring upward. For centuries they had thought of themselves as fragile, compared to the vast empires of the stars. Yet now, one of the greatest relics in the galaxy had chosen them. That truth spread through every human heart, filling them with a strange mixture of fear and pride. Inside the command chamber, the young woman stood before the glowing consoles. Golden maps stretched around her, stars shifting and aligning into patterns unknown to Earth. Her team watched in awe, their faces pale in the shimmering light. The ship's voice echoed through the chamber, steady and calm. "Humanity commands, awaiting directive." The weight of those words pressed on her shoulders. Billions of lives hung in the balance. Every empire across the stars was watching, waiting to see what humanity would do. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. "We don't want war," she whispered. "We only want to survive." The ship responded instantly. Directive accepted. Defensive protocols active outside. The golden glow spread across the hull, shimmering into shields that covered the vessel like a second skin. Alien fleets scrambled, their scanners overwhelmed by the sheer force of the energy field. Panic filled their channels. "We cannot break that shield," one commander cried. Another hissed, "If they choose to strike, we are finished." But the ship did not strike. It hovered in silence, its power undeniable but restrained. Humanity had chosen not conquest, but protection. That choice, more than any weapon, terrified the galaxy. On alien worlds, broadcasts showed the warship rising higher above Earth engines, burning like suns. Ordinary beings watched with wide eyes, their voices hushed. Some cursed humanity, others prayed to them, but none could ignore them. The balance of power had changed forever. In the Great Council of the Stars, ambassadors shouted in panic, "They must be stopped." One demanded, "No one's species can hold such power." But others shook their heads. "We cannot stop them. If the ship obeys only humanity, then humanity has become untouchable." The chamber dissolved into chaos. The mighty rulers of the galaxy now arguing like frightened children. Back on Earth, soldiers lowered their weapons. Scientists wept. Civilians cheered or prayed. The world understood what had happened, even if they could not yet believe it. Humanity had been underestimated for too long. Now the galaxy would see them differently. The young woman placed her hand against the glowing console. Her voice was steady now, stronger than before. "Protect Earth, protect humanity." The ship's engines roared an answer. "Directive accepted. This world is under my shield." Golden energy spread outward, wrapping Earth in a vast protective barrier that shimmered like liquid fire. The alien fleet scattered, unwilling to test its strength. Their ships retreated into orbit, engines burning as they pulled back farther and farther, until they were only specks in the distance. Humanity stood beneath their new guardian, no longer helpless, no longer prey. The young woman turned to her team. Her eyes glowed faintly with reflected light, but her voice carried calm certainty. "We've been given a chance. The galaxy doesn't know it yet, but this changes everything. Not just for us, for everyone," her teammate, still trembling, whispered. "What if they attack again?" She looked toward the maps, toward the endless stars beyond Earth's skies. "Then we'll be ready." The ship's voice echoed once more, heavy with promise. "Legacy continues. Humanity endures." Above the clouds, the warship climbed higher, engines blazing, golden runes burning brighter than ever before. It rose into the heavens, Its presence felt across every corner of the galaxy. The silence it left behind was not just awe. It was fear. It was respect. It was the realization that humanity was no longer a forgotten species in the dark. They were the commanders of a godlike vessel. They were the inheritors of a legacy 30,000 years old, and from this day forward, the galaxy would never be the same.